going on, guys? I'm your co-host here, Darnell Smith.
With co-host Tony Molina.
And welcome to episode 1 of Paychecks and Playbooks. We're so excited to start this journey. Tony, man, can you tell the people a little bit more about what this series will be all about?
Yeah, we're going to interview current and former professional athletes. And really the main goal is to change the narrative around how everyone views pro athletes and money. You know, I think if you go and Google anything about athletes and money, you see people going broke. But the reality is there's a lot of success stories out here. And that's why today we're going to have Sheldon Day talk about his story, because we want to change that narrative. Yes,
we do, man. I couldn't have said it any better. And there's no better way to start off this season with none other, my brother, 8-year NFL veteran, current defensive tackle for the Vikings, and the founder of the Players Company, Sheldon Day. Man, how you doing, brother?
Man, I'm doing well, man. I appreciate y'all having me on, man. I'm excited to take this journey with y'all. I think the narrative surrounding us athletes, entertainers, and influencers has been broken for a while now, and I'm excited to start changing that narrative and changing people's perceptions for sure.
Yes, sir, man. Yes, sir, man. Well, I'm ready to dive straight into it, man. Like, obviously, Sheldon and I, we go way back. We been knowing each other since we were 9 years old. Played on the same basketball team. I know we had the real tight-fitted jerseys. It's a story that we always tell, man. So, I know it from the very beginning. But a lot of people who are tuning in right now and listening, they don't know your story. They don't know your beginning kind of foundation, man. So, I guess tell the people, what was life like for you growing up, in the East Side, Indianapolis? I know you moved around a little bit. What was life like for you?
Man, so I think we need to kind of lay the foundation of how this podcast is going to go. And I think transparency and honesty is how we're going to do this. So I think for all our viewers and listeners, we should ask Darnell, who was the better basketball player?
If you ask me, I'm going to say me. I'm never going to pick somebody else above me, man. So
I'm going with Darnell.
Tony, I don't know. Look at the flick of the
We know who the better football player is.
Can I have some, Sheldon? God,
yeah, let's give Darnell that.
I don't know the risk and I guess we go find out soon. But growing up on the east side of Indianapolis, it was fun. I'm not gonna lie. I guess we didn't grow up with a lot, so I didn't understand what poverty was and things like that. So my mom worked 7 days a week. She worked for a hospital network, I think it was called, or an insurance, something like that, for Monday through Friday. And then she worked at the local barbecue shop. It's called Barbecue Heaven. If anybody's been to Indianapolis, they probably know it's on the west side of Indianapolis. My family grew up on that side of town. We knew the owners and things like that. So my mom would work 7 days a week, just grinding. And she made sure that we never went without, but I feel like we never wanted anything, if that makes sense. So she gave us the opportunity to have a good Christmas, have good birthdays and things like that. Lived in a 3-bedroom house. It was me, my big brother, and my big sister. So shared a room growing up, things like that. So, we never really wanted for anything, but we also didn't know about the luxuries of life and things like that. It was not until we moved to the far east side, and then when I met you, Darnell, that everybody thought we had money because we had a 2-story house. I think it was like 2,000 square feet, something like that. So it was the perception that everybody thought, but they didn't know the inner workings that was going on in the home where my mom's working 7 days a week and things like that. So I say I grew up pretty well, but now being ventured out and seeing what money looks like, a big house actually looks like, and seeing what finances can do to a child's upbringing is kind of cool.
You know what, Tony, real quick, just came to my head here. Sheldon makes a good point where it's like when you're growing up, like poor and poverty or whatever, you don't even really know that you're poor because like that's all that you know. Like you've never even seen wealth to even compare it to anything. So to you, you're like, "Ooh, I have a nice meal to eat every day and a roof over my head, got some clothes on my back. I'm good." It's not till you get like older and you start to see and venture out that you truly understand that, hey, I guess there is more to life than what I'm used to. So I thought that was a good point, Tony.
Was there any point, Sheldon, speaking of that, where you growing up, where you started to understand a little bit more around the world in terms of finances, where you maybe saw, whether it's like professional athletes or other famous people, where you started to change the perception you had around money? Because if you've grown up, you don't have that perception that you're poor, quote unquote. When did that change, and when did you start to maybe see a future ahead where it could be something different?
Oh man, I would say seeing NFL guys pull up to game days. You would see them pulling up in the old school classics or Lamborghinis or things like that. And you see them having all this jewelry on. Like my perfect example is Dion pulling up, had his chains on, dressed really nice car. And it's like, wow, is that what you're supposed to do when you get money? Like, I want to do that. Like, I want to have a big diamond chain. I want to have a diamond or an iced out watch. I want to have the nice clothes, nice car. And then you start to equate that to think that equals women, power, and success and things like that. So the perception that was received from a little kid from Eastside Indianapolis whose goal is to play football or play in the NFL and things like that, it's like, wow, when I get there, that's what I'm going to do. That's the life I'm going to live. So that was kind of my perception of people who have money. I never knew successful businessmen growing up, things like that. So it was more so, oh, I had to be a rapper or I had to be an athlete. There was no, oh, I want to be Sheldon the entrepreneur, anything like that.
Sheldon, I want to ask you one question that I just thought of. You grew up seeing that perspective, and there's probably a lot of young kids out there that do see that perspective, and they see wealth as material things, cars, jewelry, the finer things in life. You now have money. Mm-hmm. How has that perception changed, and how might you describe that to someone younger that's listening to help them understand that money is a little bit more than just those material things?
Ooh, y'all put me on the spot. I love this podcast. Okay. I guess I never wanted to keep up with the Joneses. I guess like I was always taught that you never want to be a follower. You want to be a leader. So like, of course I can afford those nice things. Of course I can go to the car dealership and buy almost any car I want. But what does that do for my long-term success? Like when I'm 50 and this car is depreciated, it doesn't even work anymore, or this jewelry, like I don't even like it at 50. So now I was thinking like, what will I buy now that I'll like at 50? Probably a nice home, probably a vacation experience, things like that I can take those memories with me, or I can live in this house for forever. So now I'm thinking about what will still hold the same value to me at a later age. I know that's kind of hard for a 21, 22-year-old to do, or I mean, this NIL stuff, kids are getting money at 18. They're thinking like, oh, I'm going to keep getting it. So it's more about the long-term satisfaction instead of the instant satisfaction.
Love that.
Yeah, no, me as well, man. And obviously, you talk about, not having those direct role models or examples of like wealth in front of you, and you having to kind of see that on TV, whether it's through sports or entertainment. Let's fast forward to Notre Dame, your college days. Talk about just that transition and, really, the first time you've left the nest, you've left Indianapolis, and you're kind of connecting with people from different walks of life, people who come from money, come from, successful families, things like that. What was that like for you?
It was an eye-opening experience. I would say it's a culture shock, to say the least. I remember early in my college career, I saw a kid get out of Ashton Morton, and I'm like, what is that? And I'm just like, am I like, do I belong here? I don't even have a car at this point. I'm 2 feet bandit. Like I'm walking everywhere. Right. I don't need no car. I'm calling people for a ride, and I see an Ashton Martin. I'm like, wow, this is what money looks like. This is like what the top 1% of the wealth looks like. Like this kid probably doesn't even know how much this car is worth. He doesn't have to worry about his car declining. He doesn't worry about where his next meal's coming from. No, none of that. So Notre Dame opened up my eyes to what true money looks like, and now it looks like these are where successful people go, and this is what successful people do. So you need to start putting yourself and surrounding yourself around those individuals because they have a future.
Now, when you saw that, when you saw the Ashton Martin, you're connecting with teammates and hearing about their stories. Did you was that a source of motivation in a sense, or inspiration for you to let you know, like, dang, okay, like there is more to life. I can go out here and get myself a nice home and a nice car and build upon that. I guess dive into that for us. Yeah,
I would definitely say it was inspiration. I went to school with Jesse Bon Jovi, who is Bon Jovi's son. Torrey Hunter Jr., which is Torrey Hunter Sr.'s son. Corey Robinson, David Robinson's son. Austin Collinsworth was his Chris Collinsworth's son. Like all these people, I'm in school with them, and it's like their parents are coming to the games. I went to the school with the Fertittas who owned the UFC, and they sold their shares. Like the amount of money I was around, and it's just like they would come and just you can feel their presence in the room. They just walked with power. So it's like, how do you carry yourself as a businessman? How do you own a room when you walk into it? So they kind of taught me those lessons and things like that, and just picking their brain like, oh, if you were in my shoes, what would you do? So now I'm being a sponge and trying to absorb so much info and energy and just really trying to use my likeness, because I feel like I'm a likable individual, and using that to my advantage to say, hey, how do I get on your level and make sure that I can continue to be better? I guess like I always saw it as like, if I go back to the east side of Indianapolis, I was a failure essentially. And I know that big mental piece of everything is like, how do I get far away from there and make sure I can bring the people that I came up with me on the journey, if that makes sense.
Wow. I think that's a great lesson too, is you walked in and you had a little bit of doubt, but it sounds like you became curious and you started seeing how other people were brought up and how other people viewed money. And that curiosity led to kind of a change in your confidence, it sounds like, to where you quickly realized that you belong. So let's fast forward now. You get drafted, you get a signing bonus. I happen to know the amount, $608,000 you get.
Yeah.
Right. That's a big moment for a lot of athletes. A lot of money in your bank account right away. Walk us through what you did and how you managed that.
Ooh, man, so that payment was 2 installments. I remember that. I think my first installment was right at 300,000, somewhere. I think 303, somewhere around there. And I went from having $975 in my account from my last
stipend?
Yeah, your stipend plus like your rent money and all that other stuff. So I went from having $975 to $300,975. So like overnight. So it was crazy, but it was shock. It's like, wow, like what I'm supposed to do with all this money? Like, oh my gosh, like, oh, I'm rich. Like I can go do this. I can go do this. And then the fear hit me immediately. It's like, well, this money's supposed to last me the rest of my life. It's only $300,000. Can I make this last? So now I'm thinking, what if I never play in the league? What if I never play it down? What if all this doubt and I guess self-sabotage almost? It's like, dang, if I spend all this money and I go broke, I'll be like everybody else. Oh man, but how do I not go broke? How do I do this? So it's just all these questions are just swirling in my head, and it's how do I take the first step in at least knowing what to do with the money?
Wow.
Who helped you in that journey? Because that's a lot of money and not many 21, 22-year-olds can manage that on their own. So was there anyone around you, family, friends, that helped you manage that and set yourself up for where you're at today?
I would say the biggest factor was my mom. I always wanted, she knew how I felt. I feel like I'm a very giving individual and always trying to help when I can. And she raised me to be that way. So I feel like she knew me the best, and she kind of saw that realization starting to come. It's like, dang, well, this person asked for $100. This person asked for $1,000. Oh, this person needs help with the rent. Blah, 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 blah. I think she could start feeling the pressure from me because I'm asking, hey, like, did so-and-so hit you up? And she was like, what? No, why would they do that? So then it became, how does she protect her baby boy? How does she make sure that I'm okay and that I can be self-sufficient off of this money I just made?
God, that's powerful too, man. And, obviously I think, again, anybody, even myself, I'm 30 years old right now. If I got that amount of money overnight right now, like I might not know exactly what to do. It's hard to know what your immediate move will be when you never had that amount of money, man. It's for you, like you said, it sounded like you had almost fear initially when you got the money, just like panicking and not knowing what to do. So your first step is to go to someone who obviously knows you the most, who you're comfortable with, who is your mom. I guess talk about like, what are some of the specifics that she did to truly help you, I guess manage that and just make sure that you didn't just blow that money just instantly?
Yeah. I think the best way to describe my mom was she was my moat. So like everybody knows when you build your castle, you got a moat to make sure that no enemies can come in and only people that you allow through the drawbridge can come in. So her being my moat was probably the best thing for me. I started to direct everybody when it came to money or directing straight access to me through my mom. So they were like, hey, cuz, can you do this for me? I'm like, you got to ask my mom. She controls this. And now it became, do I ask Auntie Carol? Do I ask Mama Carol? I don't know if I really want that reaction, or I don't think I want her to know my business, or I don't want her to know that I asked her son. So now that started to kind of break through the weeds. And now it's like, okay, if they really truly needed help, they'll ask my mom. And then she would decipher like, I think you can kind of figure this out on your own. Or she'd be like, hey, Sheldon, I think they might need this. I'll leave it up to you, but I think they do. And then she would put it back on me. So I always had the indecision, but she would kind of be that barrier to make sure that she kind of weeded through the nonsense.
That's powerful, man. Two questions there. One, Like, where did you even learn that? Like, did you have another teammate who had a similar system like that, and they kind of taught you, or did you, something that you just kind of came up with on your own? And then, I guess, secondly to that, did you ever feel like, I guess, guilt when you ever had to say no? You know, like to a family member, a friend, whoever it may be. Was there ever a sense of like internal guilt because you know you have it, but at the same time, you know you can't just say yes all the time because then that's the first way to not have it. You know what I'm saying?
I'll say I learned it along the way. Because when I first got money, I was always one like, oh, I'm gonna help my mom out. I'm gonna make sure I pay off her house. Well, I wasn't the first round pick, so I couldn't pay off her house. So now it's like, well, what can I do for my mom to show that how much I appreciate her? So I paid off all of her debt. So I think she had credit card debt, so I paid that off to make sure that she started with a clean slate. So little things like that. And then it kind of trickled down into her becoming my moat and things like that. And now, essentially, she's my confidant. Now it's like, oh, should I do this? And then now we're working through stuff, and she's learning as I learn. And now when I have meetings with financial advisors or I have a meeting with somebody, now she's in the mix, and now we can make a decision together, if that makes sense. So she was my moat. She was my confidant. She was just all encompassing. And I know that's hard for some people to find because like a lot of people know, we get taken advantage of because we so focused on football, we so focused on our sport, and it's hard to trust people. And like if you can't trust your family or you can't trust that one person, it kind of makes this process really hard. But I think time is the truth teller to it all. So give people time to kind of show their true colors and things like that. And then on the second piece, I do have survivor's remorse, and sometimes I know I got it. And I know if I give it to them, it won't do anything to my bank account. But it's like, do I enable somebody? Do I become their outlet? It's like, well, I know Sheldon go help, or I know if I ask him for $5, if I know $500, or I want to go party, but I got to pay rent. Let me just ask Sheldon for it. So now I'm trying to make sure people grow up and make sure like, okay, you got to make adult decisions because I'm gonna have to make adult decisions when I'm done playing ball. And so I don't want to enable you because now you keep coming back to the well and the well dry up. So that was another thing that I learned coming along the way too.
Sheldon, what's one piece of advice you might give someone coming in the league or a young, maybe a rookie or second year right now who maybe doesn't have that moat? Because clearly that was a big part of your success, but also, you know, you found the internal inspiration to manage your money and think long term. But let's say someone coming in the league doesn't have that perspective, doesn't have that family member they can rely on, and they got a bunch of money right now. What's one or two pieces of advice that you would recommend to them?
I would say don't rush anything. I think when you get out of college, it's like, oh, I got all this money. You can let it sit in the bank for a little while. Like it's still like put it in a money market account. It'll still earn some interest. You don't have to go pick a financial advisor immediately. You don't have to go do these things immediately. You have time. So I think that's probably number one. And number two is give people time to show their true colors. I know a lot of people, they like you get drafted. It's a whole lot of people that come around. Aunties, uncles, third cousins. It's crazy. So let people show them their true colors. And usually if you give them enough no's, they'll go away. So if you keep giving them no's, they keep coming back and they're persistent. At least they show that they're truly involved. I would like to say so. I said no to a lot of people. Oh, let me get some tickets. No. Oh, let me do this. No. And then they finally was like, just kept coming like, dang, well, all right, I'll give you some. And they're so appreciative. It's like, man, you don't know, like just getting that one ticket is blah, blah, blah. Or man, you're so dope. You're blah, 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 blah. So now it's like they're invested in you outside of your sport or whatever. They're invested in you as the person.
No, I'm sorry. I was saying, I think that's a powerful message right there for all of our listeners.
Agreed.
The power of no. Just the power of no, Tony, is huge, man. Now go ahead.
And no isn't a selfish thing. And I think that's like one of the big keys here. Whether you come from your background, Sheldon, or just, any other, saying no to people who want to potentially use your success or leverage your success for their own benefit is not selfish. You worked hard to where you're at. You worked hard to get that signing bonus and sign those big contracts, and also think about long term. And I think that's one key takeaway here is saying no. Let's change the narrative around saying no and being able to think long term. Because sure, you can help out those family members, friends that you say no to later on, and I'm sure there will be a day where you probably will help them out, but in a more thoughtful, perspective way. So I appreciate you saying that, and I'd like to share that advice with people listening right now.
For sure.
One more thing that I personally just wanted to kind of nip in the bud, so to speak, before we kind of transition to what one of our final segments is. I think there's a narrative around, like in the world, that all professional athletes are just rich. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think they just assume that if you're in the NFL, you're rich. Can you kind of just, briefly just break down and explain that, one, that's not the case, and two, you mentioned, like, you got drafted, it was the 4th round, correct?
Yeah.
4th round. Like, there's a difference. Like you mentioned earlier, you was like, hey, my initial plan was to, pay my mom's house off, but you didn't get drafted 1st round, so you couldn't do that. Like, there's levels to wealth within a locker room. Kind of explain that a little bit as well, please.
So for sure. So I think my year, number 1 overall, made $28 million. I think he signed. Yeah. Whew. And then now I'm a 4th round pick. I think my contract is a 4-year, $2.9 million contract. And now you think about, he was number 1 overall, and I'm in the 4th round. It was only 100 people between me and him. So it only goes down between after him and in between me, and then it gets even lower after me. So now it's everybody thinks, oh, you got drafted. Oh, they see the N number and they think you get that right away. Most of us don't make it to the N number. So it's like you see 2.9 on Google, but you might not make it to the N number. And you got to think about taxes, agent fees, training fees. So many expenses goes into this lifestyle. And I think I seen somewhere LeBron spends $1 million on his body a year. So it's like you got to think about the upkeep of your body and making sure that, like, that's your business. So you have to invest back in yourself. So it's just so many expenses that people don't know. And then you got the guys who are making $50 million in the locker room, $40 million in the locker room. So now it's like, all right, here I am making 2.9 over 4 years, and he making 50 in 1 year. So now you see that range, and it's like, oh, well, you in the locker room with so-and-so. Why don't you make money like him? So then it's like, it's such a big range that most people, they see the Google number. That's what I like to call it, the Google number. But the Google number isn't reality.
That's crazy too. Real quick, Tony, like, I'm glad you chimed in on that about the locker room aspect of guys making $50 million a year, guys making, a couple $100,000 a year, whatever the case may be. Even within a locker room, there's still classes, if that makes sense. There's still like levels. There's still like, obviously you're not literally poverty, of course. No one in the NFL is, poor at all. But within a locker room structure, they always say comparison is the thief of joy. And it's like, I'm like, man, like you said, I'm 4 years, 2.9. This guy's making $50 million a year. So even though I have money and I'm good, there's still a long, like, it's levels. It's way different between me and this guy.
I think from an outside perspective too, you do assume that everyone in the locker room is just rich. And it's like, you're just like all at that same level. So I find that interesting. And I assume that there's also a temptation for young athletes who maybe aren't drafted in the 1st round to keep up with that 1st round pick or to keep up with the guy with the $100 million contract. I'd love to hear, before we get in that last segment, I would love to hear from you, Sheldon. How did you resist that temptation to join that lifestyle and get to where you're at now?
I would say I had the best veterans that a rookie could ask for. Of course, my rookie duties, we'll probably get that in the later segment, but rookie duties were terrible, but they did teach me how to manage and how to handle your business in the NFL. I had a guy named Sindari Marks, Malik Jackson, Avery Jones, and they showed me the way. Avery was on his 4th year, balled out, knew he was getting another contract. Was teaching me like, hey, when you go to the table, this is what you ask for. You compare yourself, blah, 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 blah. St. Derek was teaching me the game of football, helping me grow my knowledge of the game. And then Malik, he signed a big contract when he got to Jacksonville and had every car you could think of. And he would, I guess, lend me his cars when I wanted them.
That was plural. Lend you his cars. Yes.
Cars with a Z, not an S.
Yeah.
I mean, when you dealing with those upper echelon cars, you gotta put the Z on it. So I guess it was like, if I wanted the itch, he would let me drive the car. Of course, like yeah, just give me the keys. He's like, yeah, just put gas in it. You got it, whatever. So now it's like, that's something to aspire to, but it's not something that I need right now because I could kind of get that itch when I wanted it. But he knew if I bought that car, it would kind of deplete my bank account. So that was a good lesson that I learned from him. He said, I didn't buy this car until I got paid. So now it's like he's teaching me those lessons as we're going through it. He's like, I drove a F-150 my entire 4-year career when I played for the Broncos. But as soon as I got paid and I signed a $90 million contract, I went and got the Benz I always wanted. I went and got this car I always wanted, things like that. So he showed me, like, the later gratification once you get the money that you know will set you up for a lifetime.
Love that, man. Delayed gratification, man. Don't spend what you don't have. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And it's also a lesson that if you do have it, it is okay to sometimes spend on the luxury as well. It's not a show where we're saying, don't spend this, don't spend that, you can't do this. Like, we're all human. We all have certain, like, things, nice things in life that we want. We're not saying don't buy it. Just make sure that you make responsible decisions when making those purchases, man. And I just think, credit to you for just listening to those veterans. Credit to them for being able to teach the game and give it back to you. And I know someone else on this show who always gives out free game and is my co-host here, Tony. So I want to move on to our final segment here, man. Tony's take. Can you please take it away, man, and just give us some, I guess, your vision, your take that you want to leave us with on this show?
I got two key takeaways here. So Sheldon talked about building a moat, and I find that really inspiring, and I find that as a huge step for a lot of young athletes. When you come to the league and you come into money, find your moat, whether that's a person, whether that's some like layer of relationship that you have with someone, whoever that person typically is, find that way to set a little bit of barrier with the family or friends that might come asking for some of that cash. Because like you said, you signed that contract, that Google number is a lot bigger than potentially what you're going to see. If you can find that barrier, find that moat, you might be able to then set yourself up for more longer term success and save a little bit more down the road. So I find that number one. Number two is, you just said it, Darnell, delay the gratification of big spending. It's really easy. We all do it. We're all human. You make some money. The first thing you think about is buying those material things, right? Whether in your locker room or behind the desk. And if you can just delay that, even by one day, what I do, I add things to my Amazon cart. I never buy it the same day. I wait until the following day. The majority of those things, I just take out of the cart because I realize I don't need them. Same thing for a guy who comes in the league. Go to that dealership. Go ahead. Take a look at that G-Wagon. Take it for a spin. Don't buy it that day. Can almost guarantee you that if you come back to that dealership the next day, you're going to realize, probably don't need it. I can probably invest in some other things that are going to set me up for success. So those are my two key takeaways.
I love it, man. Hey, I already know this is episode 1, but I know that's going to be my favorite segment for this series, man. So I appreciate that, those key takeaways. And I hope all of our listeners took some notes. If you didn't, rewind this episode, listen to it again, and make sure you really lock in because there were a lot of gems dropped during this episode. And Sheldon, man, we appreciate you so much for obviously joining us on episode 1. And Tony, I just can't wait to see where this series goes and where this road takes us. So all of our listeners, man, be sure to, subscribe, download this episode, share it to your group chats. We will have so many more, star athletes, entertainers, influencers, you name it, coming on this show, breaking down their wealth journey. And hey, I'm your co-host Darnell. This is my guy Tony. Until next time, we're out. Peace.